Before we begin, subscribe so you never miss another sleepless night. Now, let's begin. The incident I am about to tell you about happened in 2017. I was 7 months pregnant with my daughter. I was living with my aunt, who was the only person helping me during that difficult time. She supported me and my baby throughout the entire time. Honestly, she was the mother I never had. Because I was in the early stages of my pregnancy, she almost never let me do anything. But one day she came down with a fever. With no other option, I drove to the store to buy some snacks for my to eat. I hate being the lady in distress, so I assured her that I would be fine. She told me to be careful, lying on her bed, and I smiled at her, closing the door behind me. I got into her car and drove to the Dollar Tree store, 3 blocks from our house. When I got to the store, I grabbed a shopping cart from the corner and started walking around, casually looking for something to eat. When I noticed the chips on the top shelf, no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't reach them. My extra weight made it difficult to move. Then I heard a voice behind me say, "Let me help you." I turned around and saw an old woman standing behind me. She had a caring smile on her face. I smiled back and moved aside so she could get the chips for me. I smiled again and thanked her. She patted me on the cheek and then looked around with a confused look on her face. "Where's your husband, dear?" "I don't have one." "Oh, then the child's father?" "He's not in the photo." "I see." Knowing that I was here alone, she frowned. She looked around again, and then said in a concerned voice, "You shouldn't be wandering around alone like this." Now, I think this is mating of the brightest 10. No, my aunt takes care of me. She takes care of me, but she's sick. That's why I had to come here today. Okay, and how long have you been living with your aunt? A couple of months. What about your parents? By this time, I was starting to feel a little uncomfortable with her questions. I tried to walk past her, but she followed me, like my shadow. Every aisle I went down, she followed me, asking me various questions. I told her about my parents and everything else she asked about. Now I realized that was a huge mistake. But at the time, I thought she was just concerned about me. She continued to give me advice and recommendations on how to take care of the child and myself. One thing that bothered me about the way she spoke was that she hardly blinked. Her eyes were constantly moving, following every movement in the Dollar Tree store. There weren't many people in the store. I picked up a few boxes of juice when the woman leaned toward me and said, For your desires, right? If I were your aunt, I would take much better care of you. She takes good care of me. Well, you're here alone, and that proves the opposite." I started to get angry as the old woman continued to disparage my aunt for not being a good guardian. I tried to push her away, but she didn't understand my hints, so I ignored her and started to walk away. The old woman followed me again, but this time, things got creepy. "Why don't you come with me?" she asked, out of the blue, and continued to smile at me as if it were a completely normal thing to say to someone you just met at a department store. "Excuse me?" Farme. I can take good care of you and your child. I have a big farmhouse on the outskirts of town. Believe me, you and your child will have the best life. I have to get home." With that, I turned to leave, but the old woman grabbed my card and stopped me. She smiled broadly and, "Okay, let's go to your house first so you can get all your things. Then I'll take you to my place." I couldn't keep my composure. I pulled her hand away from my cart, which shocked the woman, but she stepped back a little. "I don't want to live with you. I have an aunt who will take care of me. Now, please leave me alone." Her face became serious when she heard my angry voice. She lowered her eyes for a moment, then looked back at me. A sinister grin appeared on her face, and she spoke. But what if something happens to you? Your aunt isn't with you right now. Life is very uncertain. You know that. What? What do you mean? You're a freak. Stay away from me, or I'll report you to the police. With that, I didn't linger near her for a second. As I walked away, I looked back to see if she was following me, but this time she wasn't there. I searched for her with my eyes the entire time. The entire time I was at Dollar Tree, but I never saw her. After I checked out, one Dollar Tree employee helped me carry my bag to my car. Wishing me a good day, the employee walked back inside, and I stood in the empty parking lot. All I wanted was to get home as soon as possible, but my panic-stricken mind suddenly felt the urge to pee. Being pregnant and driving while holding my pee was practically impossible for me at that moment, so I had no choice but to finish my errands. The public restrooms at Dollar Tree are located at the back of the store, and I didn't want to go in there to run into that creepy old woman again. So I decided to use the small restroom in the parking lot. I locked my car and walked to the left corner of the parking lot. It was a small restroom with 3 toilets. When I entered, there was no one there. I went into the first toilet and was already doing my business when I heard the toilet. The door creaked open, followed by slow footsteps. At first, I didn't react to it, because literally everyone uses these toilets, but then the footsteps suddenly stopped, being wary and frightened. At the same time, I tried to listen to every sound, but there was only silence around me. I kept looking at the door, covered in sweat, when I heard heavy breathing above me. The blood froze in my veins, and I slowly raised my eyes, watching her breathe. When my eyes noticed the toilet stall next to mine, my stomach dropped. It was the same old woman from the Dollar Tree. She was standing on the toilet seat to look at me. I will never forget that moment in my life. Her wide, scary eyes stared at me, silently. She didn't say a word, just stared at me with an expressionless face. I wanted to scream, but I lost my voice. Then she spoke. "You have to come with me. I'll take care of you and your baby. Please leave us alone. Do you need money? I can give you some money. Keep your damn money. I want your baby." With that, she reached out to grab me. I stood up, screaming for my life. I opened the bathroom door and ran out in a panic. The old woman got off the toilet seat and chased me out of the bathroom. It was the hardest run of my life. I ran to my car, and the old woman laughed behind me like a maniac. I kept screaming, "Come here! I want your baby. I'll take care of you too. Come to me." Somehow, I got into the car and closed the door before she could reach me. Her hand was caught between the door and the car, but I slammed it shut. I heard the crack of bones, followed by a painful scream as my car door broke her wrist, but I didn't care anymore. I drove away at full speed, and the woman continued to scream. "This isn't the end. Just remember that." When I got home, I burst into tears. My aunt immediately called the police and told them about the woman and everything that had happened to me at Dollar Tree. The police never found the woman, but a week after the incident, I read a missing persons ad in the newspaper. It was for a public relations woman in her early 20s. One afternoon, she went shopping at the same Dollar Tree store, and no one has seen her since. To this day, no one knows what happened to her or her child. I firmly believe that the creepy old woman had something to do with her disappearance. The incident I am about to recount occurred when I was about 13 years old. My parents, at the time, my parents were going through a divorce, so the atmosphere at home was not the best. We lived in a small neighborhood where I had almost no friends. To pass the time, I drew a lot, saving up. Saving up my pocket money from odd jobs, I bought various items for crafts and handicrafts to channel my amateur artistic talents. Dollar Tree was my favorite place to buy everything, as everything there was quite cheap and affordable. The Dollar Tree store was located 3 blocks away, right next to a gas station on the highway. I rode my bike there 2 or 3 times a week. It was a large store with a huge collection of all kinds of household items and even more. One day, I went to the store around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I preferred that time because there were very few customers then. After parking my bike on the corner, I went into the store. Long aisles with high shelves filled with all kinds of goods opened up before me. The cashier was dozing at his desk. I estimated that there were probably 2 or 3 people there, not counting me. I started looking around the store. There was a sale in the arts and crafts section. I bought a new set of charcoal pencils and some acrylic paints to decorate a flower pot. I was so absorbed in my shopping that I didn't notice someone standing behind me. Suddenly, I heard a hiccup and turned around in fright. I turned around and saw a man dressed as Jack Sparrow from the famous movie starring Johnny Depp standing behind me. It was a closed space, so there was almost no space between us. Feeling uncomfortable, I moved away a little and said, "I'm sorry, I didn't see you." "Oh, but I saw you," he replied. At first, I thought he was just playing a role, but from the way he was hiccuping, I realized that this guy was drunk as a skunk. His pupils were dilated, and I could smell whiskey on his clothes. "Why are you dressed like that?" I asked. "Just like one. Like Jack. Rook," he replied. His mouth opened wide in shock, as if I had said something unexpected. He just stared at me, eyes wide, mouth open, very creepy. Then he said in a slurred voice, "And I thought I was Jack. Rook." "What?" I replied, laughing a little. "Oh, you're laughing, so you don't believe me. You don't believe me, do you?" Suddenly, his face changed. He frowned, and I realized that my sarcastic laughter had offended him. Not knowing how to respond to a stupid question from a drunk, I stood there with an awkward look on my face. "Answer your captain! You! Life!" he demanded. "You're the shittiest Jack Sparrow I've ever seen in my entire life," I said, and turned to leave him alone. Fortunately, the man did not follow me. After a while, I went to the cash register to pay. I quickly looked around the store and realized that the man was no longer there. Feeling relieved, I left the store, and that's when my nightmare began. I remembered exactly where I had parked my bike, and to my surprise, it wasn't there. My stomach dropped when I heard a chilling laugh and the ringing of a bicycle bell. It came from the dark parking lot at Tonics Braid, some distance away. There was no one around to ask for help, but I was determined. I wasn't going home without my bike. With trembling steps, I entered the parking lot. There were several cars there, and the lights in the parking lot were flashing like crazy. It took me a while to get used to the creepy atmosphere, but what I saw made me break out in goosebumps. Creepy Jack Sparrow was sitting on my motorcycle, parked at the end of the lot. I couldn't see his face, but I'm sure he was smiling eerily. Noticing me coming, he suddenly shouted, "You need to get yourself a girlfriend, buddy." With that, he pedaled faster, almost like a bullet flying straight at me. At that moment, I screamed and ran away. I heard the man laughing like a maniac. He was chasing me on his bike, and I don't even know why. All I know is that if he catches me, he definitely won't let me go unharmed. "I'll catch you. I'll catch you," he shouted. Leaving the parking lot, I ran down the highway. Luckily for me, there wasn't a car in sight. Almost in a panic, I ran in the opposite direction instead of going into Dollar Tree. Now, the man was riding my bike down the highway and laughing even louder. He was having fun, scaring me to death. The scorching heat was exhausting me. I was tired, so I rode slowly. I could hear the crazy sparrow pedaling faster. I felt like I would never be able to outrun him. I was about to collapse in the middle of the road when I saw a large truck coming toward me. When I saw it, I felt a desire to live again blossom in my heart. I started waving my arms up and down, shouting at the truck, "Stop! Please stop! I need help! Stop!" The truck driver noticed me and honked his horn. I turned around and saw that the man had stopped pedaling. He looked at me, then at the truck, and then back at me. He realized that the truck would stop for me and that I had nothing to fear. His angry eyes burning with hatred. The evil joy disappeared from his face, and he slowly got up from my bike. Then he kicked it so that I fell onto the concrete road. The bike bell broke, and he ran into the forest. When the truck driver picked me up along with my bike, I was completely exhausted, drenched in sweat. Breathing heavily, I gasped, "Please, just take me home," I begged, except for giving him directions to my house. I didn't say a word to the truck driver. When he dropped me off at home, I thanked him for his help and immediately went to my room. I didn't go outside for almost a week. Every time I heard a bicycle bell, I got goosebumps. The reason I never shared was that no one would take it as a threat. Everyone would have thought that some crazy guy in a Jack Sparrow costume was just playing a joke on me. Not a night goes by without me having a nightmare about that psycho riding my bike, chasing me in a Jack Sparrow costume. A few years ago, I worked at a popular dollar store called Dollar Tree for about 6 months. A few years ago, I worked as a cashier, and after working there for only 2 months, I sometimes worked alone. We were constantly trying to hire more people. But luckily, every time I was the only employee, it wasn't too bad. I worked mostly night shifts, usually, until closing. We closed at 10 p.m., and the store was in a quiet neighborhood. On one of those quiet nights, I was working alone. It was a little rainy outside, with light rain falling on and off. I noticed this because the front of the store, where the cash registers were, had windows facing the parking lot. After 8 p.m., we had almost no customers that evening. Apparently, the rain was keeping people inside. I continued. I did odd jobs, organized things, and talked on the phone. The last hour always dragged on, but at the same time, it was nice to know that I would be going home soon. That evening, after 9 o'clock, we didn't have a single customer, which suited me fine. I always got a little nervous when I was the only employee. When someone came in late at night, but at around 9:15 m or so, I saw a car pull into the wet parking lot. A car in the wet parking lot. Until then, only my car had been there. This car was older, dark blue in color, a 4-door sedan, and it parked in the nearest parking space. Then, I saw a man get out of the car. He was a little larger and dressed in a blue raincoat and a gray and red baseball cap. He got out of his car and walked toward the store. Once inside, he walked down one of the aisles. I remained standing at the register at my playing and talking on the phone. A few minutes later, I noticed the man walking down the aisles toward the front of the store. He seemed to be casually looking around. He didn't have anything in his hands, and soon he disappeared from view. Then he slowly walked toward the entrance. I looked back, and our eyes met for a moment. To be friendly, I smiled slightly and said hello. The man simply turned away and slowly walked toward the exit. Then he left the store. I watched as he got into his car and drove away. I returned to being alone again. By this time, it was already around 9:30. I walked around the store and made sure everything was in order. Then I decided to mop the floors so I could leave at 10. Luckily for me, no one came into the store while I was doing that. That took me until about 9:50. Then I went back to my control strip and spent the remaining 10 minutes talking on the phone. I checked the time on my phone every 5 so I could close the store at 10 o'clock. At 9:58 p.m., I saw a car pulling into the parking lot. I had a bad feeling, but then I noticed something. It was the same car that had just been here. There was no mistaking it, because the car looked older and was somehow unusual. The man who had been here 30 minutes ago returned, but this time he didn't park next to the store. Now he parked right next to my car. I parked a little further away, and by the curb, the man parked on the side, so that my car was blocked from his view. I thought it was a little strange. I thought that maybe the man had dropped something on the ground when he was in the store, and came back for it. I don't know exactly why, but that was the only possible explanation that came to mind. However, the man did not get out of the car as I expected. Instead, he remained seated in the car with the engine running. At 10 p.m., it was time to lock up, and I walked over to the doors, keeping my eyes on the car in the parking lot. I wondered if he would get out when I approached the doors or something like that. For some reason, I was a little nervous. He didn't get out. I made it to the front door and successfully locked it. Then I went to the back room to work my shift. After doing that, I returned to the front, hoping and kind of expecting to see that the man had left. After all, he could see that we were closed and I had just locked the door. But the car was still there. It looked like the man was still inside. Now I had a very bad feeling. Why did he decide to park right next to me? There were a dozen empty spaces. And why was he here in the first place? I thought about just getting out and walking over to, but my instincts told me not to. What if this man was waiting for me? I decided to wait inside and hope that the man would leave. I sat inside in my control lane, glancing at my phone and looking up every minute or so to see if he had left, but he hadn't. Soon, 30 minutes had passed. 30 minutes had passed. It was already 10:30 p.m., and the man was still parked next to my past car. I decided to text my best friend, Brené, who lived nearby. After telling her about the situation, she offered to come and pick me up in her car, and I agreed. I asked her to drive right up to my car, and the men were much further away, at the back of the parking lot. She told me she was leaving, and about 5 minutes later, I saw her car pull into the parking lot. I walked to the entrance of the store and then came out just as she pulled up. She stopped briefly, let me get into the passenger seat, and then quickly drove away. We drove off, and luckily, the man didn't follow us in his car. We drove back to Brenna's house and returned to Dollar Tree a short time later. Afterwards, the man's car was gone. Brenna dropped me off, and I was able to get into my car and drive home. After that incident, I really wondered what that man was doing. Was he waiting for me to get to my car, and did he have some kind of plan? I'm glad I didn't have to find out. When I was 16, I got a job at a local supermarket. It was a pretty good job, and the work wasn't too hard. I lived in a nice part of town, so the customers were mostly elderly people and wealthy families. There were a few incidents, but mostly just unhappy customers or lawyers shoplifting. I worked there for almost 3 years, until I was 18, until June 24, 2008. That night, I was working an 8-hour shift that lasted until 11. The first few hours were uneventful, but around 6 o'clock, it started to rain. It wasn't a normal drizzle, but a real downpour. When It was time for my meal break. I realized I had left my wallet in my car. I decided not to get an umbrella from the lost and found and just run out. Big mistake. I was only 10 seconds from the front door, but by the time I got back inside, I was thoroughly soaked. I bought a snack and went upstairs to dry off. About half an hour later, I came back down, still wet. I stepped through the door of the break room and looked around. The store was almost empty. I headed toward the customer service department, but noticed only 1 or 2 shoppers. I was surprised that there were so few people as 7:30, but I figured that most people didn't want to go out in the rain. I walked over to the register and started chatting with my coworker, Maria. We talked about her children and helped random customers who had gotten wet. Most of them understood. They had run out of something necessary, such as milk or toilet paper. From time to time, the lights flickered slightly, but it was probably just the storm. There was a rumbling sound in the distance, but it was quite far away. I'll restock the shelves tomorrow, I decided. With that, I walked over to the shelves and looked outside. Some distance from the store, I saw 2 dogs eating from an overturned trash can. Behind them was a large bush, and it was moving not randomly. The movements were not random, but rather slow and jerky. Suddenly, the 2 dogs turned around and growled at the bush. Then Maria screamed, "Joanna, come and help me!" "What the hell?" I muttered as I approached her. I stood up and approached her, looking very confused. The dogs seemed to have disappeared into thin air, and I was sure I saw something come out of the bushes, but it was so fast. By the time we had rearranged the items in the aisles and returned to our places, it was already 15 minutes past closing time. We called Victor, who was our night cleaner. He came and started mopping the floors. Victor lived in a small garage behind the supermarket, so he was also our handyman. He started mopping the floor next to my counter and asked, "Oh, okay, you look a little worried." "No, it's nothing. I'm just tired," I replied. "Okay, then I'll do it quickly." "Thanks," I said. I started gathering my things and Victor went to finish his work. He was always nice to me. We had been dating for a while, too. Anyway, when I went outside and stood by the exit to have a smoke, I noticed an empty highway surrounded by forest. The streetlights made the scene even more eerie. I lit up and noticed 2 huge yellow eyes staring at me from the bushes. The eyes blinked slowly and stopped my heart from beating. "You left your phone on the table, Joanna." I turned around and saw Victor shouting my name. Something stabbed me, and I ran inside at full speed. As soon as I closed the door behind me, a huge bolt of lightning struck and the lights went out. Damn, what a night. "I'll light some candles," said Maria, lighting the candles and placing them on the candlesticks. Victor sat down by the window and lit a cigarette. Suddenly, breaking the silence, I spoke. "There's something out there." "What? What did you ask?" "Say?" Maria asked. "I said there's something out there. I think something ate those dogs. Or, I don't know." "What are you talking about, Joanna? What dogs?" "Guys, believe me, there's something evil out there. Some kind of creature. It has eyes like a cat, but they're huge." "It's probably just a cat. You're scaring yourself," said Victor. "No, Victor. I know what I saw." "Okay, I'll go check." "No, don't!" Victor grabbed a mop in one hand and a flashlight in the other. He went outside, and Maria followed him, with no other choice. I had to follow them too. We went outside, and I pointed to the bush. Victor poked the bush with the end of the mop, and then shone his flashlight on it. As soon as he did, my blood ran cold. The head of a cat-like creature appeared from the bush. Its eyes followed us, and its sharp, long ears stuck out like horns. "What the hell is that? Hello, kitty." "Kitty, "Come here. Are you hungry?" Maria called. "Maria, don't get too close to it." But Maria didn't listen and got too close to the bush. At that moment, the electricity came back on, and the large lamppost directly above the bush lit up. We all froze in fear. Behind the bush stood a huge creature, almost like a lion, but it had a very slender body without fur, like a sphinx cat. But strangely enough, it had fur on its muzzle and a thin layer of fur on its neck. It had a huge, slobbery mouth that opened and licked its lips with its huge teeth. It was four-legged, but stood on two legs like a werewolf. Victor threw a shovel at it in fear and ran toward the store. I did the same, but before Maria could reach it, the creature dug its sharp claws into her flesh and grabbed her other arm. Then, with one small push, it tore her body in two. It was horrible to watch, but I couldn't help her. Help her, and I would have suffered the same fate. We climbed inside and closed the glass door, but I knew it wasn't enough to keep that beast from killing us. It ate our colleague, wiped the blood from its lips with one paw, and slowly disappeared into the darkness of the forest. The police investigated Maria's death as a missing person case. Her body was never found, and it never will be. I hope that none of you ever have to face that creature. A couple of months ago, I went shopping at my local dollar store. I go there quite often and buy all sorts of things, everything I need. I don't pay attention to the fact that the quality of the items is cheap because I save a lot of money by shopping there. Although I don't buy everything, the things I do buy suit me just fine. The apartment where I live is just a few minutes walk from the dollar store, which makes it very convenient. One late Saturday evening, I decided to stop by the store to buy a few things. It was a 10-minute walk from my apartment to the store. This store is smaller and usually not very crowded. When I entered the store that day, I noticed only a couple of people scattered throughout the store. I grabbed a basket and started shopping, but didn't get very far. I hadn't gotten very far when something strange happened. When I reached the back corner of the store, I saw a man standing there openly drinking beer. He was dressed a little strangely, in a green sweater and what looked like dress pants. He didn't look homeless, but he didn't look particularly clean or sharp either. It was very strange and even funny to see the guy just standing there, sipping beer from a bottle. He wasn't shopping, just standing there, and I saw another open bottle of beer sticking out of his pocket. I laughed and smiled to myself when I saw it. The guy didn't look at me. Someone else walked past him, giving him a strange look. I was buying something nearby, but I kept glancing over to see if the guy was still there. Still there. The dollar store didn't sell beer, so the guy must have brought it with him. Shortly after that, I heard a store employee approach him. They told the man he had to leave and that he wasn't allowed to drink there. The man was unhappy. There was a brief argument, and then he ran away. He didn't look that drunk, but I guess he could have been. It was kind of stupid to go into a store with a beer like that, in that condition. Maybe he was playing a prank or something. I finished shopping and I went to the checkout. I bought maybe 5 things, and the cashier put them all in a bag. After paying, I left and started walking home. I was about halfway there. I was already on the sidewalk when I saw the man in front of me, the same one who had been drinking in the store. He looked very angry and was standing by a mailbox, drinking his beer. I noticed he was looking at me as I got closer. When I walked about 10 feet away, his eyes were still on me. I smiled in a friendly manner and asked how he was doing. The man kept looking angry, and then he cursed at me. I was very surprised. I decided to just walk past him and say nothing more, but as I was walking away, the man said, "Where are you going?" I replied that I was going home, but at that moment I heard his footsteps approaching me. I turned to face him. He looked even angrier. I told the man that I didn't want any trouble and was just trying to get home. The guy started swearing at me again. Now I realized that he must be drunk. His speech was not slurred, but there was no other explanation for his inappropriate behavior. I turned to continue walking home, but then the man grabbed me by the shoulder and pulled me back. Then I broke free and ran away. The man started chasing me, but he wasn't very fast. I ran to my apartment and went inside. Fortunately, the man stopped chasing me right in front of my house. But after that incident, I realized that I had to be more careful. I don't know what was wrong with that man, but I hope I never see him again. I love going to Dollar Tree. I come from a family with limited means, and it's one of the only places we can go together and buy a lot of things. Even if we don't buy anything, it's a great family outing because the kids have a good time and we can go somewhere without feeling pressured to spend money. That day, Thomas, my husband, had just gotten a new job and invited us all to get whatever we wanted. The kids were thrilled, but none of us knew that cheap sometimes comes at a high price. When we walked into the store, our 2 kids were very excited and didn't give us time to ask them to stay with us. They ran to the toy section. Martin, our eldest son, bought a helicopter, and Gwen bought a military plane. Apparently, they had agreed to buy similar toys before we even got to the store, which I found a little amusing, and I was happy for them. After Thomas chose a screwdriver, I was very happy that I could finally buy the photo frame I had seen a few weeks ago. It may seem like a simple thing, but when you're struggling to make ends meet, every dollar counts. In the end, I went for it, and there it was, the last one in the store. I was happy, imagining how I would put it next to my bed. I was going to hang a picture of our family and look at it every night before I went to sleep. I joyfully, like a child, took it in my hands. And as soon as I took it in my hands, the woman pushed me and snatched it out of my hands. "Hey, I saw it first. Take your dirty poor hands off it," she snapped. The woman was large, stocky, and athletically built. Even though she was wearing a tracksuit, you could tell it was designer clothing and that she was well off. "What's the matter?" "I saw it first." "How dare you push me like that?" "No, you grabbed it first, but I saw it before you did. I'm not going to argue with a low-class cockroach like you. Go make your husband's dinner. It's Saul. First of all, treat me with respect. I'm a human being just like you, and you have no right to boss me around. Secondly, who I'm cooking for is my business. You should be thanking me for touching you in your clothes at the supermarket. It's a miracle that your children aren't in a zoo and your husband doesn't do the cleaning," she said with malice and a broad smile. My patience had reached its limit. I consider myself a very calm woman who always tries to come to an agreement. But when someone interferes in my family affairs, I explode. In a rage, I slapped her, snatched the photo frame from her hands, turned around, and left, saying a few last words as I walked away under the puzzled glances of Thomas and my children. "Oh, and by the way, if you're so rich, don't go shopping at Dollar Tree." The woman froze, her face turning red as a tomato, and she began to breathe heavily, growing angrier with every passing second. The veins on her face began to bulge more and more. From a random Karen, this woman had turned into an enraged gorilla that could jump out and attack us at any moment. I lost interest in the show and simply joined my family and continued walking. "Nice to meet you, Angela," Thomas said. "Shut up. I would never let such a resentful witch interfere with my beautiful family. By the way, the witch must have been really offended because she left her." basket behind and walked away. Turning around, I confirmed Thomas's words. In a matter of seconds, the woman had simply disappeared. She had done quite a bit of shopping, but she didn't take anything with her. "She definitely took your slap to heart," Thomas said. "Yeah, and you know what? It's for the best. She was probably one of those rich girls who never got put in her place. She deserved to be checked out." As we were paying for our things, I looked up, and there she was, staring at us, outside. Enraged, she was still red and breathing heavily. At that moment, I knew something was wrong, that we might need to prepare for a confrontation with her on the way out. I told Thomas, but when he looked up, she was gone. We quickly made our way to the car without bumping into anyone and got in, ready to drive away with our purchases, but something was wrong. The car started, but wouldn't move. What? No, this can't be. What is wrong? Thomas, I think someone punctured the tires. Outside the car, the woman was furious, banging on our car, full of rage. The woman wasn't trying to get inside. She wanted to destroy the car with us inside. "How dare you raise your dirty, disgusting hand on me? You! I'll kill you and your family of cockroaches! Leave us alone. My children did nothing to you. No, I've had enough. I don't care that she's a woman. I'll stop her." Thomas got out of the car in a rage and approached her. He was about to speak, but the woman immediately shocked him with the stun gun and hit him in the chest. And hit him on the knee with an iron pipe. When Thomas fell, she trampled on his face and rubbed it with her foot, as if she were killing a cockroach. The woman's face was crazy, possessed, and she was clearly enjoying the moment. I rushed out of the car to stop her, but she stopped me with excellent reflexes and hit me hard in the stomach with her iron pipe. When I was lying on the ground, she hit me in the knee with the pipe. Laughing. Thomas and I were lying curled up on the ground. Neither of us knew where the woman was, but luckily she wasn't around. We started trying to get up. Suddenly, I saw her again and screamed loudly. The woman returned with a bucket of gasoline, which she poured into the car with the children inside. "No, stop. You know, I've never been interested in this horrible scene. You know what? I hate families like yours, especially the children." I tried to crawl as fast as I could to stop her somehow. Thomas tried too, but he was a little behind. When I saw her take out a lighter, I knew it was over. There was no way I could get there in time. Suddenly, a man rammed into the woman, and another woman opened the car door and pulled the children out. By the time we realized what was happening, the place was surrounded by people. There weren't many people in the car. There was chaos at the Dollar Tree store that day, but it was enough to alert everyone. The police arrived a few seconds later and arrested the woman, who was acting wildly, like an animal. Shortly after that, the girl's family offered us a huge amount of money not to press charges against the woman, but we refused. Our story became known, and many people donated a lot of money to us. Since none of us could work, we weren't going to live a luxurious life. But thanks to the people who knew our story, we were much more comfortable. On the other hand, the woman not only lost the court case, but was also deprived of her inheritance by her family, who tried to disown her. This woman has never worked, but when she gets out of prison, she will have to work for the first time in her life to avoid starving to death.